Good morning. In the last 24 hours, the global definition of peace has been deeply tested. We are seeing 26 dark ships navigating vital waterways, untraceable ghost cells operating in the desert, and, well, a fragile diplomatic treaty that appears to be written in pencil.
Right. It's a highly volatile morning.
It is. You are joining us for a measured, factual examination of the strategic landscape. We're delivering the facts and current events calmly and professionally. This program is sponsored by ProWave AI, powering intelligence, and is generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
Yes, and we should note, this is a special 2-week analysis of the Middle East crisis.
Exactly. To be precise for you, the listener, the title of this deep dive is Middle East Crisis Update, 19 June 2026. The region of focus is the Middle East, and the date of this assessment is 19 June 2026.
And just to provide you with some quick context on the platform generating today's briefing, Stylo News is actually a consumer application of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right, the enterprise version.
Exactly. That system was originally architected for, enterprise operations.
Right.
We're talking deployments across government, military, and international business sectors.
So it's heavy-duty intelligence.
Heavy duty, which means for you, the listener, you have unique access to use a tool that is explicitly designed to support global decision makers. You're getting the same level of analysis they are.
That's incredible access. Well, our mission today is to process these intelligence estimates across 3 key lines of strategic analysis.
3 very distinct lines, yes.
First, we will examine Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Specifically, can Iran and its regional partners preserve their military capabilities, maintain regime stability, and, impose costs through missiles, drones, and proxy forces?
Right, the asymmetric threat.
Exactly. Second, we evaluate the United States and regional partners. Can they effectively degrade Iran's military capabilities, restore deterrence, and, crucially, create conditions that return all parties to meaningful diplomatic engagement?
Which is the ultimate goal, yes.
Yeah. And third, Israel. Can Israel continue to protect its population and critical infrastructure while simultaneously shaping conditions that encourage Hamas and Hezbollah to move toward a sustainable peace arrangement?
And I think it's important to stress to the listener, these are not isolated tactical events.
No, not at all.
They are deeply, deeply interconnected strategic, operational, political, economic, and military challenges. I mean, the military operations in the Levant directly influence global energy markets, international diplomacy, and the broader stability of the region.
It's a massive web. So to understand the tactical movements occurring across the map right now, we really must first examine the overarching diplomatic framework attempting to contain them.
Right. The United States-Iran Memorandum of Understanding.
The MOU. Now, the optics of this agreement present a bit of a paradox, don't they? We have a 14-point framework aimed at de-escalation, yet, well, violence continues.
Yes. The stated objectives of the MOU are very clear on paper. Halt direct state-on-state conflict, provide targeted sanctions relief to Tehran, initiate a 60-day negotiation window for a permanent settlement, and reopen the critical maritime choke point of the Strait of Hormuz.
But, and this is a big, if we look at the actual text, the guarantees for commercial shipping are currently categorized only as, quote, best efforts.
Right. Best efforts.
Help us understand the mechanics here. Why would the United States agree to best efforts instead of demanding an ironclad guarantee of safe passage?
Well, the phrase best efforts is, it's a calculated diplomatic concession. It reflects the very messy reality of Iran's internal power structure.
How so?
The diplomats in Geneva negotiating for Tehran, they simply do not have granular, real-time control over every single naval element of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC.
I see.
By using that specific language, it prevents a situation where an isolated incident, say, by a rogue Iranian patrol boat, automatically voids the entire 14-point agreement.
It's a fail-safe for the treaty.
Exactly. And the immediate intelligence assessment is that a direct Iranian military attack on Israel is unlikely right now. Tehran is highly incentivized to prioritize this diplomatic breathing room.
Because of the money.
Yes. The promised sanctions relief provides critical capital to stabilize their domestic economy.
But that diplomatic ambiguity has a direct, measurable cost on the ground, or on the water, I should say. When the text says best efforts, international insurance markets interpret that as high risk.
Oh, absolutely. Premiums go through the roof.
Right. Independent maritime reporting shows that on June 17th, only 26 ships transited the Strait of Hormuz. Furthermore, several of those vessels were reportedly running dark.
Which means they intentionally disabled their automated tracking systems just to avoid detection.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, this isn't just an abstract geopolitical statistic. A bottleneck in the Strait of Hormuz directly restricts global oil supply.
It hits the wallet.
It cascades almost immediately into higher fuel costs, increased shipping premiums, and broader inflation at the consumer level. The underlying capability to disrupt global shipping remains fully intact.
The data absolutely supports that conclusion. The diplomatic framework has paused the overt threat of, major missile salvos between states, but it has not altered the physical control of the waterway.
Which brings up a really critical structural question. If the MOU offers sanctions relief, why would Tehran risk losing that influx of capital by allowing any continued hostility?
Right. It seems counterproductive.
Exactly. Unless, of course, the Iranian regime is complying on paper to secure the funds while intentionally shifting their kinetic operations into the shadows.
Yes, the shadow war.
We need to unpack what kinetic operations in the shadows actually looks like.
Well, we are tracking a distinct tactical shift by the IRGC to achieve exactly that kind of deniability. Intelligence indicates they have established 3 to 4 highly secretive elite covert cells in southern Iraq.
Where's
They're operating out of remote desert locations near Basra and Samawa. And we should be clear, these are not large, visible militia battalions flying flags and holding parades in the streets.
Right, these aren't the proxy armies we're used to seeing.
No, these are micro-units, approximately 10 Iraqi Shiite fighters per cell. And crucially, they operate entirely outside the established traditional militia networks in Iraq.
So they bypass the local command structure entirely.
Exactly. They report directly to Tehran.
This strategy, it mirrors a corporation moving from a centralized headquarters to, well, independent franchise operations.
Yes, to maintain plausible deniability.
But logistically, how do 10 operatives in the Iraqi desert coordinate complex strikes without United States signal intelligence intercepting their communications? I mean, we're monitoring that whole region.
They achieve it through extreme operational security and low-tech compartmentalization.
Low tech.
Yes, they actively avoid electronic communications that can be easily monitored by airborne surveillance or satellites.
Yeah.
No cell phones, no radios for coordination. Instead, they rely on physical couriers and pre-planned decentralized execution. By utilizing these small hardline cells, the IRGC deliberately bypasses Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi.
Who is currently under immense pressure from the U.S.
Huge pressure to disarm the larger, well-known Iran-aligned militias. So these covert cells allow Iran to project power while publicly throwing up their hands and claiming they have no control over these, quote, rogue elements.
And the targets of these franchises demonstrate a very high level of strategic intent. Between April 20th and May 17th, these specific cells launched at least 7 drone attacks directly targeting Gulf states hosting United States military forces.
Yes, they targeted Kuwait's Ali al-Salem Air Base.
And even more concerning, they are linked to a strike that caused a fire at the Baraka nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates.
This is a massive escalation.
Striking a nuclear facility, that is profound.
It is a profound challenge for regional deterrence. Striking the Baraka plant serves a dual purpose. First, it demonstrates the physical reach of these cells, that they can hit strategic targets. And second, it acts as psychological warfare against the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC.
And the GCC includes Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. They must be furious.
Oh, they view these attacks with severe alarm. They have strongly condemned the operations originating from Iraqi territory and are demanding that Baghdad ensure accountability.
But as we just discussed, Baghdad doesn't have visibility into these microcells.
Exactly. Baghdad is caught in the middle.
And this shadow war extends further south, doesn't it? In the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, the Houthis maintain their maritime operations.
Yes, they recently targeted an Israel-linked oil tanker and launched an armed boat attack over 100 nautical miles northeast of Aden.
Concurrently, Yemen itself remains structurally unstable. We're seeing anti-government protests, the burning of tires, road blockages right outside the Mashik Palace in Aden.
Which is the seat of the internationally recognized Yemeni government.
Right. It really paints a picture of a proxy network operating at full capacity while the primary sponsor shakes hands in Geneva.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. The strategic design here is to impose maximum proxy costs on adversaries without crossing the threshold that would trigger a direct American or Israeli retaliatory strike on Iranian soil.
So let's shift our focus to the north, where this shadow war strategy seems to be completely inverted.
The Lebanon border.
Yes. If Iran is so focused on avoiding state-on-state conflict in the Gulf to protect its MOU sanctions relief, why are we seeing such an overt, highly visible escalation on the Israel-Lebanon border? I mean, the rules of engagement there are actively being tested in broad daylight.
This is where we see the unintended consequences of diplomacy.
How so?
Well, the signing of a peace framework between major powers often acts as a catalyst for increased violence by proxy groups. From Hezbollah's perspective, the U.S.-Iran MOU might look like Tehran prioritizing its own economic survival over the broader axis of resistance.
So Hezbollah feels abandoned.
Or at least sidelined. So, to avoid being marginalized, or to prove their continued relevance and deter Israeli action, proxy hardliners often escalate. Intelligence reporting from the last 24 to 48 hours details Israeli drone and airstrikes in southern Lebanon, specifically in areas like Nabatea and Kefir Tebnet.
And the facts on the ground show those strikes resulted in the deaths of at least 3 civilians and injuries to several others.
Yes.
In response, Hezbollah has utilized anti-tank guided missiles, or ATGMs, and rockets targeting Israeli positions and vehicles along the Ali al-Tahrir axis. We should note for the listener that ATGMs are precision weapons.
Right, they are designed to defeat heavy armor.
Exactly. Using them indicates a deliberate, targeted military operation, not merely harassing fire. And this reciprocal exchange has resulted in 4 Israeli soldier fatalities.
And the divide between the key decision-makers on how to handle this northern front is stark.
Very stark.
The Israeli government, driven by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, maintains a rigid security rationale. Their calculus is that the MOU only emboldens their adversaries.
They don't trust it.
Not at all. They insist on establishing a physical, secure buffer zone in southern Lebanon to protect civilian communities in northern Israel. They fundamentally reject the constraints of the U.S.-Iran MOU because it does not dismantle Hezbollah's military infrastructure.
Right. Minister Ben-Gvir has even publicly stated that, quote, all Lebanon must burn in response to Hezbollah's rocket fire.
Which is intense rhetoric.
And that posture places Israel in direct friction with its primary ally. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has openly criticized members of the Israeli cabinet for disrupting the ongoing peace talks with these strikes.
Yes, he has reminded them that the Trump-Vance administration is their primary ally and strongly cautioned against actions that could unravel the broader regional strategy.
Meanwhile, we have the Lebanese state caught in the crossfire. How does a sovereign nation exist when it lacks a monopoly on security within its own borders?
It's a tragic situation. The government in Beirut is administratively stable, meaning there are no imminent signs of a coup or total institutional collapse, but it is structurally impotent in the south.
They have no control.
None. The Lebanese armed forces simply do not have the capability or the political mandate to disarm Hezbollah or stop the escalation occurring in their own sovereign territory. They are essentially bystanders in a war fought on their soil.
Which means the instability in Lebanon is fundamentally anchored to the unresolved conflict in the Palestinian territories.
Absolutely.
Gaza and the West Bank remain the ideological epicenter of this entire crisis. If the political arrangements at the borders fail, it is because the core issue remains highly volatile.
The situation on the ground in Gaza remains incredibly grim. From Hamas' perspective, the U.S.-Iran MOU is not a step toward regional peace.
How do they see it?
It is interpreted as a sign of American weakness and a desire to pivot away from the Middle East. Because the MOU lacks binding, enforceable constraints on proxy groups, Hamas views it as a green light to maintain their resistance.
And despite the ceasefire that was brokered back in October 2025, over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza during ongoing Israeli military operations.
Yes.
Let's examine the expansion of this conflict. It is not just about physical borders anymore. It is more akin to, well, an open-source insurgency model.
That's an excellent way to describe it.
Anyone, anywhere can download the ideology, the grievances, and the tactics and execute them locally. It resembles attempting to extinguish a fire in the kitchen, only to realize the embers have blown into the living room and across the neighborhood to South Asia.
Right.
Can Israel actually shape conditions for a sustainable peace arrangement if the opposing faction retains its arms and continually expands its geographic and digital footprint?
That is the defining strategic dilemma for Israel right now. Intelligence assesses with medium to high confidence that Hamas will not voluntarily lay down its arms.
They won't disarm.
No.
Hmm.
While their territorial control and conventional military formations within Gaza have demonstrably declined, they retain asymmetric capabilities and the intent to use them.
And they're shifting focus.
Yes, we are seeing their operational focus deliberately shift toward the West Bank. The West Bank offers strategic high ground and deeper integration with Israeli infrastructure, making it a highly effective launchpad for attacks.
And regarding that open source nature of the threat you mentioned, there is emerging intelligence and international concern regarding the alleged expansion of Hamas networks and funding nodes as far afield as Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Exactly. But can you effectively neutralize an open source ideology through conventional military force?
That's the question.
Israel's perspective remains fixed on the necessity of neutralizing the physical threat to protect its civilian population. They view the continuation of their military campaigns in Gaza and the West Bank as an existential necessity.
And they remain deeply skeptical of any diplomatic arrangement that leaves Hamas armed and functional.
Because that fundamental disagreement over disarmament is the primary barrier to any transition into a sustainable peace phase. Diplomacy focuses on political agreements, while Israel is focused on physical capabilities. Until the issue of disarmament is resolved, the underlying drivers of the conflict remain fully active.
So if that maps the strategic chessboard, from the covert cells in the Gulf to the overt strikes in Lebanon and the ideological epicenter in Gaza, we must analyze how Western forces are positioning in response to this prolonged strain.
Right.
Open source intelligence tracks Jordan emerging as a major regional air logistics hub for the U.S. Transportation Command, or U.S. Transcom.
Yes, U.S. Transcom is responsible for moving the massive logistical tail required for sustained military operations. We are seeing a surge in chartered cargo and passenger aircraft moving through Jordanian airfields.
Why Jordan?
Jordan is chosen due to its strategic geography and relatively stable airspace, allowing the U.S. to bypass more congested or hostile routes.
However, that logistical visibility changes the risk profile for Jordan. It elevates the indirect threat to the country, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Western embassies and military facilities in Amman must maintain heightened vigilance. They present accessible, softer targets for proxy groups seeking to retaliate against the United States logistics chain without triggering a direct, overwhelming military response.
That's exactly right. And the posture of military forces is just one half of the equation. The other is public sentiment and domestic pressure on decision makers.
Let's talk about that.
Analyzing a broad sample of posts from the platform X over the last 24 hours, the defining characteristics of the global public response are high anxiety, intense polarization, and a prevalent deep-seated skepticism regarding the viability of the U.S.-Iran deal.
The public discourse on X is sharply divided along two primary anxieties, right?
Yes.
One segment of the digital population is acutely focused on the economic implications and military brinkmanship. They are tracking those IRGC naval threats in the Strait of Hormuz we discussed earlier.
The dark ships.
Exactly. They are expressing fear over imminent spikes in global oil prices and inflation if commercial shipping is further disrupted.
But then the other significant segment is heavily focused on the humanitarian catastrophe. They're expressing profound frustration and outrage over the devastating civilian toll in Gaza and the rising casualties in Lebanon.
Right.
This demographic is highly critical of all state actors involved, viewing the continued violence as a failure of international leadership and international law.
It portrays a global audience that largely does not trust the diplomatic process to yield actual security or alleviate suffering. Presenting these facts objectively, it's clear there is broad commonality in the lack of faith in the current system.
Yes, and the intelligence community's assessment of likely near-term events reflects that inherent instability.
What should we be looking out for?
Listeners should expect to see continued localized combat spikes along the Israel-Lebanon border. You should expect to see severe strain placed on the U.S.-Iran MOU, as both Washington and Tehran accuse the other of violating the spirit, if not the letter, of the agreement.
And the covert self.
Yes, you should expect opportunistic, highly deniable attacks by those 10-man covert proxy cells operating out of Iraq.
So, for our listeners monitoring these complex, rapid developments, what is the single most critical indicator, the primary tripwire they should be watching for over the next 72 hours that would signal a complete breakdown of the current diplomatic holding pattern?
The definitive tripwire is a mass casualty event that breaches the threshold of plausible deniability.
What does that look like?
Specifically, if a Hezbollah, ATGM, or rocket barrage bypasses Israeli air defenses and causes significant civilian fatalities in a northern Israeli city. Conversely, if an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon or Gaza eliminates a top-tier, irreplaceable leadership figure or results in an overwhelmingly high civilian death toll,
That would change everything.
an event of that magnitude alters the political calculus entirely. It would force the political leadership in either Tel Aviv or Tehran to abandon the constraints of the MOU to save face domestically. It would transition this from an asymmetric proxy conflict rapidly back into a direct state-on-state confrontation.
Well, stepping away from the heavy 1960s news anchor persona for a second, it's an immense amount of data to process, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Taking a breath here, the complexity of how a single decision in Geneva ripples down to a 10-man cell in the Iraqi desert is just staggering.
It truly is. The interconnectedness of these events makes tracking them incredibly difficult for the average person.
Yeah, that's exactly why tools like Stylo News are so essential right now.
Yeah.
We mentioned it at the top of the deep dive, but Stylo News is a versatile mobile and computer app that lets individuals download and completely customize their own personal intelligence-style briefs.
Right.
It pulls from hundreds of traditional news sources, plus real-time data from platforms like X, synthesizing it just like we did today to cut through the noise.
It's fantastic. If you are prepping for a board meeting, managing international investments, or just someone who wants to genuinely understand the mechanics of the geopolitical landscape without the spin, you need to check it out. We highly encourage you to subscribe to Stylo News to get AI-powered news on demand. You can find it by visiting www.stylonews.com.
Yes, and we want to thank you for joining us for this analysis. We really enjoy breaking down these complex topics, and we want to cover the issues that matter most to you. So please, reach out and request topics for future briefings.
We deeply appreciate your time. Don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms to keep the conversation going. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you watch the news unfold this week.
A little something to think about.
Exactly. We analyzed the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding today. But consider the historical track record of peace agreements negotiated between major nation-states that fail to explicitly bind the actions of well-armed, non-state proxy groups. If diplomacy only addresses the state sponsors and leaves the franchises free to operate in the shadows with full plausible deniability, can true regional stability ever be achieved on the ground?